Now, our next panelist and my friend, Dr. Rajan KRISHNAN. He has been dwelling in this area for a very long time, and I also know what he has done. So in that context, I would like to put a question to him. The question is, to begin with, the movement itself was identified as an identity politics, movement for identity politics. Whereas when you read the works of Periyar as well as the governance structure who follow Periyar, clearly it tells us that no, it's more of an emancipatory politics in nature. Now, to construct an identity, to draw a map of politics, you need to have an identity. But at the same time, you should not be entrapped by the identity politics, which will lead to disaster, in terms of genocides. And history has thrown us n number of instances where identity politics has led us to. There, Periyar as well as his followers played a very clear role in terms of creating as well as an identity at the same time, moving on to the emancipatory politics. Now, I would like to hear from you, what is your understanding of this process, and will you please tell us how the switch was possible for them? While others are miserably failing, how they have transcended that trap. That's what I would like to ask you. It's more a philosophical question about the politics of the Dravidian movement itself. It's not just confined to Periyar alone. But we know pretty well from the writings of Periyar that he shunned violence all through, despite the fact that he was talking about liberty, equality, and fraternity, and continuously had been shunning violence at every moment of his life. Now over to Rajan.
So when we had exams in the school, we have part A question, part B question, and part C question, which is long answer. You're asking part C question in a panel, but it's very difficult to do. I'll try my best. Yeah. Thanks anyway to the organizers for having me here. It's a great privilege and pleasure. It's a wonderful event, and I'm very honored to be with the co-panelists here who have done excellent work to take Periyar to other languages. This question of, I've been writing on Periyar off and on. Periyar did not oppose identities to each other. In my understanding, that way I'm trying to think and work through him, and there are very clear articulations of him. It's an anti-essentialist. It's an anti-foundationalist. So, like there is a famous quote of Karl Marx, to be radical is to go to the root of the matter. For man, however, the root is in himself. So Periyar went to the root of the matter. The root is in man. So what is man? So in his seminal text, Pragadivadam or materialism, he clearly demonstrates that the self-referential I has no content. The self-referential I is a moment in thought. It's a dynamic thinking, a thought upon thought. As Foucault would say, what is philosophy today? Work of thought upon thought. So Periyar's idea of Swaya Maryadai, for the self to respect itself, it has to think about itself. It has to perform more thinking on its own thought. So in that sense, that he is trying to create a reflective ground, critical reflective ground, in which all identities will have to perform a certain inquiry. So it cannot simply be essentializing one identity against another. That's his great contribution. It's very, very pertinent that we have this session after this session on Tiruvallur, because I think that these are the two great minds that Tamil has contributed to the world. In spite of the long span of years separating them, it's hard to think of in terms of stature and in terms of the intensity and the reflective potential. Tiruvallur and Periyar stand very tall. Tiruvallur stands very tall as a statue, but Periyar stands tall in all our minds. But the problem is that mostly that he is not actually read to the extent he must be read, that in spite of these few things. And also he has to be interpreted in contemporary language and in philosophical language. And in, I mean, his dialogic and sort of a Socrates who went all over Tamil Nadu and spoke with people. So that the dialogic form, there has to be a Plato who writes on Periyar. Like the Socratic dialogues are to be interpreted. So Periyar's dialogues, Periyar's thinking also needs to be interpreted. But very quickly, I don't have much time. See, the difference between Tiruvallur and him is, Periyar was called upon to act by the Varna Dharma. See, so there's a recent Patrick Allibal edited Manu Dharma. I was reading it for the last 6 months. It's a fabulous book. I mean, it's incredible. So, I mean, the Varna Dharma's central point is that the birth is a punishment. It can be a reward comparatively for the Brahmins or whoever, privileged sections. For others, it's a punishment because birth happens only on the basis of previous birth. This is a central idea. Varna Dharma is not just classification into 4, division of labor. No. Varna Dharma is very clear. It's ontological. It is ontological in the sense people are determined to be what they are at their birth and not because of any other reason. It is a retribution for their action in the previous birth, which nobody can verify. So when in the Vaikam, Gandhi asks the Nambudiri, Nambudiri says, look, they are born as Pulaya and Yadava because of their sins in the past. So now, if you allow them in the street, we are working against God's will. God has punished them by making them be born in as Pulaya and Yadava. Now, how can we come inside the street? We will go against God's own wishes. Now, how do you beat this logic? Because nobody can verify what they did in their previous birth. And it's such a self-serving scheme that I am rewarded because what I did in my birth, you are not rewarded because what you did in your birth, and then anybody can get away with any system. So this, he had to work against it. That reference to Vaikam struggle by Sir is very important because he had to act against, speak against it, think against this because it's such an invidious system. And so that's when he went what I would call into deontologizing caste. He had to develop a very elaborate critical system in which he brought everything into question. Everything. He has said that repeatedly. He questioned God, he questioned this, like the quote you also read. So everything has to be questioned if this kind of invidious system is to be questioned because it is all because of previous, but God's will. Then how do you fight this? So then as a necessary development of critical thinking, he had to bring everything into question. And that's what makes him an immensely relevant contemporary thinker. For those of us who read anti-essentialist and anti-foundationalist contemporary philosophy, like Foucault or Deleuze and so on, it is inevitable that we connect Periyar to such thinking. And that's where his validity for the present time comes. I'll just close with one thing, that there's this beautiful book by this woman, Daniela Figueroa, Brahmins, Jews, and Aryan Brahmin Jews. It's very interesting in 20th century history that the way Aryan got essentialized in Germany and by Hitler, we all know what happened. That idea of Aryan came at the same time by the Orientalist discovery of Sanskrit. So the Aryan in India and Aryan in Europe, the Aryan in Europe led to Holocaust. The Aryan in India, however, the Aryans said that Aryans already mixed here, again. But when Periyar invoked Dravidian, it's very sagacious. It is a question of an idea against another idea. The Aryan is a Varna Dharma. That's the problem. Otherwise, everybody was very clear that it's not a racial identity. There's no racial hatred. And like the proof of the pudding is in eating. We know history. I mean, I'm speaking, and I was born a Brahmin. I know them very well. I was born and I grew up with them. But, this claim of hatred is a joke. I mean, the Nambudri who said that you don't come in, the Brahmins say we can't touch you. Are they hating or are they hated? So it's a funny reversal that Periyar is a Brahmin hater. The Brahmins are loving everybody. No, they were perpetrating untouchability, and there's no compunction about that. So it is for all that, it is a very, very wonderful, peaceful dialogic process that Periyar could create, and could create a sort of a new horizon for a community, like Agamben would say, coming community. And that has been his immense contribution. I should stop here. I'm taking too much time, I guess.
As you rightly said, Periyar advocated that we should go to the root cause. I remember, yesterday night while I was going through some of his writings, I saw this, what he had written. சிந்திப்பதில் கெடுதி இல்லை, சிந்தித்தால்தான் உங்கள் இழிவினுடைய துன்பத்தினுடைய அஸ்திவாரம் ஆணிவேர் எங்கே இருக்கிறது என்பது புரியும். முதலில் உங்கள் அறிவை பயன்படுத்திக் கொள்ளுங்கள், அதுதான் உங்கள் குறை தீர நல்ல மருந்து. What you have just said, no? If you can make people think about the root cause of their problems, then a lot of the problems can be solved, and that is the best medicine that you have for all your problems. That's what he has written at that time.